I'm Johnny Massacre, and welcome to the Johnny Massacre Show. On tonight's show, Terry Crews versus Don Lemon, China versus UK, Harry versus Meghan, and more. So, Terry Crews, yeah, he's that black actor guy who's fucking ripped. He's well ripped. And he kind of comes across as a nice guy. He's really lovable. Everyone loves Terry Crews. So, Terry Crews is outspoken because he didn't conform to the cult of wokeness and say Black Lives Matter is amazing. He actually called out some of the dangers of the group, which, well, I mean, look, any activist organization, you have to ask questions, right? Power, money, that's what things descend into in the end. And Terry Crews called that out on Twitter. And Twitter really is a left-wing echo chamber. I mean, I can go onto Twitter right now and it's going to be pure left-wing talking points. It's like reading a left-wing newspaper. And so, of course, Terry Crews coming out and saying non-controversial things about Black Lives Matter on Twitter means that he's a heretic and he will be attacked by everyone there. So, okay, so recommended for me on Twitter. And bearing in mind, most of the people I follow are conservative speakers. So what do we have? We've got BuzzFeed News right at the top of Twitter. So Twitter is pretty much controlling the free flow of real-time information among the people in the world, but they can't help but get involved to try to shape the narrative. On the top of the recommended for me is an article by BuzzFeed, which, if BuzzFeed was in China, it would be loyal to the state. They are hardcore left-wing socialist commies. So BuzzFeed says, hundreds of bikers crashed in an Ohio village's Black Lives Matter rally. So Black Lives Matter. See, we're talking about Terry Crews questioning Black Lives Matter. Go onto Twitter, and I'm telling you that Twitter's going to be against him. Why? Because the first article is a pro-BLM thing. We got rest in peace, Ellen. Unfortunately, she's not dead, but they're asking the question why she's... I'm just joking. Ellen, she's really nice. Don Lemon is trending. So Don Lemon is trending. So he's trending for the very reason I'm mentioning Terry Crews on this show. So let me click on Don Lemon and tell you what Twitter's saying about this, because you don't know what happened, right? So basically, Terry Crews, this celebrity, came out, criticized Black Lives Matter, and then CNN had him on with an interview with Don Lemon. Now, Don Lemon is a black news anchor married to a white guy who is a hardcore leftist ideologue. He loves Black Lives Matter. He was accused of sexual assault, but you don't really hear much about that because the left-wing media protects him. And the interesting thing is, even on Twitter, which usually boosts left-wing opinions, everyone is just attacking Don Lemon and his interview and framing of Terry Crews. So let me read you the first 3 comments. I'm just doing this live, just telling you exactly what's going on. Got my finger on the pulse, mate. So the first comment about Don Lemon's interview of Terry Crews is by Cernovich and says, Don Lemon started talking over Terry Crews real quick once it became clear that Crews was going to mention Black Lives Matter's real agenda. Now, if you've been watching my show, I was one of the first people to call out Black Lives Matter's agenda. I don't know why everyone's so afraid of this. Everyone's so afraid of being called a racist when you clearly aren't, for criticizing this cultist group. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter is a Marxist. Marxism came from Karl Marx. Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. Go and read it. It's really short. It's only 100 fucking pages. The Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx and Marxism is behind communist Russia. The hell and evil of communist Russia is behind the Cultural Revolution in China and why China is a fucking asshole right now. Marxism is pure evil. And the leaders of Black Lives Matter are Marxist, or at least the co-founder is. And so calling that shit out really isn't a big thing. And for a few weeks, people were dumb enough to think that if you criticize the group, it meant that you disagree with the philosophical statement that Black Lives Matter. Of course, everyone agrees that Black Lives Matter. Who's out there saying that Black lives don't matter? Really? No one. And so, yeah, Terry Crews called out that agenda and Don Lemon tried to talk over him and interrupt him. We're going to watch the segment in a minute. Other comments are, Don Lemon is the dumbest man on television. And Ian Miles Chong says, Don Lemon says Black lives don't matter unless they're being taken by cops. and that you should start your own movement if you want to make black on black violence an issue. So fun times. It's going to get really political now. Why don't you watch what we're talking about, and I'm going to give you my opinion on what's going on. So come on over to my screen, you beautiful people. Let's watch the interview together. We died together. We died together.
All right, everybody, please listen to this segment because actor and activist Terry Crews faced backlash for tweeting, "We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better." Here's how he explained it. Are all white people bad? No.
Would you disagree with that?
All black people good? No.
Would you disagree with that?
Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the number of threats against this decision, I also decide to die on this hill.
How is this even controversial? Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people bad? No. People are attacking me for saying this, and I don't like that. How is that controversial? Because the narrative is that all black people are good and all white people are bad. That is Marxist philosophy. You need an oppressor and you need oppressed. The oppressed here are the black people, according to the mainstream media. The oppressor is the white people. And considering Democrats and CNN, which is a wing of the Democratic Party, have a major policy for their campaign leaning on welfare and intersectional politics and socialism and Marxism, then they need to weave this Marxist narrative that all black people are hated by white people. And that's what Don Lemon is trying to say, and that's the narrative he wants to weave, to the point where he's even going against and criticizing the statement that all white people and all black people aren't bad, which is ridiculous. So let's keep going.
Terry Crews joins me now. Terry?
Look, Terry Crews, alpha male killer. Don Lemon. I'll let you make up your own minds.
Man, you stepped in it.
What? 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 All white people aren't bad. All black people aren't bad. Wow, you stepped in some shit by saying that. What? What? Look at the smug look on Don Lemon's face on the left. He's going, because he knows he's going to be backed up by the left-wing media. And look at Terry Crews. He's much more confident. On the left, you got the smug, belittling face of Don Lemon, protected class. And then you've got Terry Crews, who's just the alpha. He's hit the gym. He's smashed the gym. He's totally confident. I love it.
You say that you're willing. Yeah. You say you're willing to die on this hill. You've taken a lot of heat for this. Explain what you were thinking and why it's so important that you die on this hill.
So he focused on die on the hill, which is just him saying that if I'm guilty for saying that not all people are bad, then I'm just gonna defend my position and just get what comes to me, as anyone should. That's totally fair. But Don Lemon is asking him why he feels that way. This should not even be an issue. The left are trying to normalize this insane cognitive dissonance.
Well, again, I wanted to bring up the fact that, there are some very, very, militant type forces in Black Lives Matter. And what I was issuing was a warning.
This is true. This is true. If you look at the autonomous zone in Seattle, now 5 or 6 people have been shot there. They want to defund the police. This is Marxism. And they want racial segregation. There are videos of the autonomous zone in Seattle where only black people can come in. And they have a warlord. They literally had a warlord. And so that's bad. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants some weird Streets of Rage, Mad Max style hellscape in their city under the pretense of helping black people. So Terry Crews is right to raise a point on that. Look, violence is bad. Violence, shooting people is bad. It's not controversial to say that. And it makes me sick that the mainstream left-wing media are trying to normalize this kind of stuff, violence, rioting. That is the real evil here.
It's one of those things where I've been a part of different groups, I've been a part of different things, and you see how extremes can go far. And
he's right. So being part of a group, you want to be wary. When has there ever been a group, especially an activist group full of shouty, angry people, that hasn't descended into corruption? If you give these people power based on their skin color, people are going to run with that shit. They're going to go crazy. If the left-wing media give them power and excuse violence and shooting and gloss over that stuff in pursuit of the mission, utopia at all costs, breaking a few eggs to make an omelette, people are going to run with that. People are going to go crazy. Don Lemon doesn't want to highlight that. Terry Crews is an honest man. That's what he's trying to do.
Can go wild. And then when you issue a warning, and when a warning is seen as detrimental to the movement, how can you ever have checks and balances? You know, in the 60s and 70s, airplanes went down all the time. And the reason they found out why they did was because the pilots could never be questioned. And when you have the leaders of the Black Lives Movement who are now talking about, you know, if we don't get our demands, we're going to burn it down.
That's literally what the leader of the Black Lives Matter movement said in New York. They're going to burn it down. No reasonable civilization can function like that.
Other Black people who are talking about working with other whites and other races, they're being viewed as sellouts or called Uncle Tom.
Which is outrageous. Look, burning shit down, I don't recommend doing that. I mean, in the French Revolution, they just burnt everything down and killed everyone. And that did pave the way to the getting rid of the monarchy and the free world of today. But I think we've kind of moved on a little bit since then. I think you want to have some kind of civilized dialogue. You want to try to be a bit more humble. You want to get together and talk things out and debate things with the checks and balances that Terry Crews mentioned, as opposed to just screaming, shouting, and burning shit when you want your way. I think it's much better to do things in a civilized way.
You start to understand that you are now, you know, being controlled. You're not being treated as loved. You're actually being controlled. Someone wants to control the narrative. And I viewed it as a very, very dangerous self-righteousness that was developing, that, you know, that really viewed themselves as better. It was almost a supremacist move.
Let me.
Yeah, supremacist move is what he wanted to say. Because this is all about skin color and worth on skin color. People are trying to, especially people on the left, they're trying to attribute value to people based on skin color. So the left will attribute a higher value to a black person than a white person, because that's what sociopaths, that is basically what utopian movements do. And that's what communists do, and that's what Marxists do, and that's what socialists do. It doesn't have to be with skin color. It could just be rich people versus poor. But in this case, you're seeing the oppressor versus oppressed narrative woven through race. So instead of rich versus poor, you've basically got white versus black. That's what this is all about. And Marxists and people on the left and Black Lives Matter love this. They love this because Marxism is all about tearing down the system in a revolution, in a violent revolution. And so they need to have this dynamic of white versus black. And what Terry Crews is saying, it's a supremacist thing. So saying black power, and the whole narrative is black people are worth something and have a value because they're black. It's in the title, Black Lives Matter. And another person who attributed race to value was Hitler. Hitler said that white people had more of a value, or Aryan people had more of a value than black people. And, you know, in that case, it was the Aryan versus the Jew. So it wasn't the white versus the black, and it wasn't necessarily the rich versus the poor. It was the Aryan German versus the Jew. And you can see this dynamic through all socialist and Marxist movements over time. In Russia, it was the bourgeoisie, the rich, versus the proletariat, the poor. And having these supremacist movements where it's all about white is this or black is this, I think they're wrong. I think they're obviously wrong. And it's easy to kind of build this narrative with blacks versus whites because blacks have it. If you look back through history, they suffered the horrors of slavery. And so it's quite easy for people, especially in the modern politically correct world, to weave this narrative of blacks are all victims, all of them, because if you criticize it, then people can just attack you and say, oh, you're pro-slavery or you're not acknowledging the wrongs of the past and all this kind of stuff. When really, I think what reasonable people are saying is someone's worth, it just doesn't come down to their skin color, and their power doesn't come down to their skin color. Power comes down to individuality and not being divided into these blocks of people that can be exploited for political ends, but it's all about the individual. And we are all individuals, in my opinion. I think that's pretty obvious. And if you go with that, which is the obvious truth, I think this whole narrative kind of falls apart. This simplistic narrative of blacks versus whites, and black people are worth this and white people are worth that. No, how about everyone should be treated as an individual? And that is just overly simplistic deconstructionist thinking for political gain and power gain. Let's continue.
Where they view that their Black lives mattered a lot more than mine.
Okay, so let me jump in here. There's a lot that you said. You think if Black Lives Matter is, you said you think it's an extreme movement?
It is an extreme movement, absolutely. There's endless footage of people being beaten up at riots. Stores have been looted. People have been assaulted. People have died through this. There are some peaceful protests, but you simply cannot tell me that this is a peaceful thing. Statues being torn down fucking everywhere. Fucking everywhere. Statues being torn down by angry mobs. Give me a break.
It's now part of the...
No, this is the thing. It's a great mantra. It's a true mantra.
This is what I've been saying. Black Lives Matter is a true mantra. No sane person would disagree that Black Lives Matter. The philosophical statement is true, but the cult, the movement is something else, and they must be separated.
Black lives do matter. But when you're talking about an organization, you're talking about the leaders, you're talking about the people who are responsible for putting
who are Marxists, and victimhood is lucrative, and I guarantee you these people are getting paid. Colin Kaepernick, spokesman for Black Lives Matter, shitty American football player, got paid millions of dollars for just taking a knee in an advert. This is extremely lucrative. If you join Black Lives Matter, no one will criticize you because it's the movement of the moment. You're granted immediate immunity, you're granted easy power, and it's lucrative. Victimhood can be lucrative. And so you have to question the motives of the Black Lives Matter leaders with donations pouring in and promotion from all the major companies. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
I got you. So let me, but Terry, you realize that even during...
You're right, Terry. It is two different things. Black Lives Matter, the movement, and Black Lives Matter, the philosophical statement, are two different things.
The civil rights movement that Dr. King was seen as extreme. That movement was seen as extreme. To people who don't want to make change, movements are seen as extreme. You can paint them easily as an extreme when they are not.
Martin Luther King wasn't encouraging people to go out and subvert democracy and tear down statues and destroy the entire system. You simply cannot compare those two things.
This is very true. But also, when you're talking about MLK, you're talking about Nelson Mandela, and even Malcolm X, they all realized that you had to have a non-racial component to these kind of movements, or there will be resentment.
He's exactly right. Because right now the narrative is white people suck. So white people are not going to get behind this. But the left want white people to be angry, and they want black people to be angry, and they want this fight. Because if they have this fight, they can blame it all on Donald Trump. Because racism, that's what they want. The left like to create chaos. They thrive on chaos. They are the party of big government. They are the party of welfare. They need you to be dependent. And if everything is in chaos, they need you to come and save them. They don't want there to be peace between white and black people.
There will be get back. There will be, one of these people will tend to, listen, I don't want to move from one oppressor to the next. And one thing that really
who's the next oppressor?
The next oppressor are the people who take control of the autonomous zones by tearing down statues and getting what you want.
Who's the next oppressor?
Oh, when I describe this.
And it will be Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden, the guy that who all Black Lives Matter people will vote for. Don't tell me they won't, because they will, because this is all about getting rid of Donald Trump. He said, if you don't vote for him, you aren't black. That is an oppressor. That is a racist. That is a very textbook definition of racism, saying that all black people have to think the same way because they're not individuals. That is the next oppressor, is Biden.
When you look in the city of Chicago, there are 9 children who died by gun violence, by black on black gun violence.
Which is part of all the riots and chaos going on at the moment, which Don Lemon previously said weren't violent.
From June 20th all the way to today.
Terry Crews is right. Loads of people are getting shot right now in black on black violence. Those are facts. Way, 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 way more in ratio than white cops are killing black men.
And you're talking about even with the Atlanta child murder.
Not saying white cops killing black men is acceptable, but this is a glaring statistic that nobody's addressing because black lives don't matter. This is all about an oppressor versus oppressed narrative. That is the key here. Nobody cares about these black lives. If they really did, they'd be focusing on all these little kids getting shot. And it's fucking evil that people are glossing over that for the sake of their own narrative. It makes me crazy.
There were 28 kids who died in 2 years. You're talking about a month, and you have 9 black kids, and the Black Lives Matter movement has said nothing about this.
What does that have to do with equality, though, Terry?
So hang on. So, oh my God. So Terry Crews' point is the group is called Black Lives Matter, implying that Black Lives Matter. And then when little kids are getting shot, Don Lemon says that's not important because what has that got to do with equality? That's a complete straw man. Saying Black Lives Matter is nothing to do with equality. If the name of the group was Black and White Lives are both important, or black and whites should be the same, or something like that, then you can argue that this is all about equality. But it's not about equality. Black Lives Matter is about black power, essentially. And so Don Lemon saying, what does this have to do with equality? It's a complete straw man. This is nothing to do with equality. He's trying to shift the focus of the conversation away from the elephant in the room, which is if black lives truly matter, like they say, why are they not talking about the little kids getting shot? Because this isn't about black lives. It's about power, political power. That's what it's all about.
I have to check. I don't understand what that has to do with equality because listen, there's crime.
Nobody's talking about equality. We're talking about Black Lives Matter, the group.
There are people in those communities those people aren't just being nonchalant about gun violence. I lived in
They're being completely nonchalant about gun violence. They're not talking about any of the gun violence which affects most of the black lives.
There are many people who are working in those communities to try to get rid of the gun violence. It's the gun culture in this country.
This is not about gun violence now. Black Lives Matter is purely about political power and getting rid of Donald Trump.
Is prevalent, but I don't understand what that has to do with a movement that's for equality.
So what do the deaths of these little kids have to do with Black Lives Matter? Well, that's got nothing to do with that. Just forget about these little kids being shot, those black lives being extinguished. It's got nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter group, which is about equality. Just forget about those little kids. So Black Lives Matter really is making no sense right now. It is excusing the deaths of little black lives. And that's it.
For black people, it's not mutually exclusive that if you care about equality for black people, that somehow you're going to stop random violence or, unfortunately, kids from being shot. It just seems like apples and oranges.
Yeah, if you care about Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean you can save these little black kids. Just forget about those little black kids. They're really inconvenient to our narrative. We want to make the narrative that white cops and white people are evil and they're slaughtering black people, which isn't true. The main issue at hand here is black on black violence, which make up 90% of all murders in the United States. But we don't really want to talk about the key issues because we want to paint out black people as all victims from the white man in order to get rid of Donald Trump. That's what this is all about.
It's not that way. This is the thing, Don. Black people need to hold other black people accountable. I said this the same thing. This is the Black America's version.
He's exactly right. Blaming everything on someone else is never going to solve anything. You have to see what you can do on your own, and people have to hold each other accountable. Terry Crews is exactly right.
The Me Too movement. If anything is going to change, we ourselves need to look at our own communities and look at each other and say, this thing cannot go down.
He's exactly right. They need to look at their own communities. So I think 72% or up to 75% of children in black families are born out of wedlock, according to current statistics. And if you look at the knock-on effects of fatherlessness in homes, it makes you 8 to 10 times more likely to commit violent crime, to drop out of school, to have antisocial behavioral problems. These are the real issues affecting the black community. And this is where Black Lives Matter's focus should be. And they should focus on police brutality, but that is not the main issue at hand here. So these are the things that people really should be looking at. And it's all about individual responsibility, not blaming other people. That's never, ever going to stop. People will just keep blaming until the fucking cows come home, mate.
And this is the thing, too. There are a lot of great people there who are held hostage, by people who literally are running these neighborhoods with violence and then claiming that Black Lives Matter. When you look at the parents of these little kids who are saying, hey, man, why aren't they speaking up for me, too?
Yeah, the parents of the dead kids. Don Lemon doesn't want to talk about it because that's nothing to do with equality, right? That's nothing to do with our narrative of all black people are fucked that we're going to push, which isn't necessarily true just to get rid of Donald Trump.
And this is what I'm saying. When I look at this whole thing about, it's about who is controlling the narrative. It's got to be all Black Lives Matter.
Terry Crews is so fucking brave to come on and do this interview. I have so much respect for him.
What's happened is that because I even challenged it, because I even questioned and warned people,
Terry,
I became sick. Like if I told you to wear a mask,
but Terry,
they want to kick you out.
You're a high-profile person. You're writing things out there. You know you're going to get backlash. You know people are going to respond to what you're saying on Twitter.
Yeah, how dare you come out and say that little kids shouldn't be shot? Yeah, you should know people are going to hate you for that. What? I mean, this really is Orwellian shit. I'm always talking about George Orwell's 1984 book at the moment. And that book, even though it's fantasy, it's one of the most vivid depictions of what socialism and communism and what Don Lemon is all about. Because it really creates a world where what it would be like in the West if communism and socialist thinking had taken over. And they basically do what Don Lemon is doing. So they take a fact and then they spin it and spin it and spin it and they rewrite it and they cross-reference it. They cross-reference the fact with other nonsense until the original meaning of what you're saying has kind of lost all context. It comes out garbled and gobbledygook, so nobody knows what the fuck's going on. And that's basically what Don Lemon is doing. He's telling the truth, which is, look, loads of black people are dying, including black kids. Why aren't we talking about it? And then he's turning that around and saying, no, that's evil. How dare you even mention such a thing? That's literally what happens in Orwell's 1984. And that's what countries like China still do. We're going to look at some stuff later in the program about China. They're doing the same thing to the UK. So China are taking over Hong Kong. And then when someone calls them out, England calls them out, says, what are you doing? Then China says, no, you're being aggressive now. Look at you, you're being aggressive. So they take a true statement and they flip it back on you and then accuse you of being the aggressor. That's what Don Lemon's doing. This is what crazy communist motherfuckers do. And that's why everyone is getting so tired of the left-wing media because it's just weird socialist nonsense.
I don't think you should be surprised by that. I have a skin as tough as an armadillo because
tough as an armadillo. All right, mate.
What I do, and I think maybe you should adapt that. But here's what I have to say. The Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was talking about police brutality. If you want an all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, black communities, then start that movement with that name. But that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's not an all-encompassing. So if you're talking...
Well, how is it not? Where do all these weird esoteric rules come from? If you want to have Black Lives Matter and talk about all gun violence, then start a different group. Well, then why is it called Black Lives Matter? Why isn't it called Blacks Against Police Brutality or Police Brutality Against Blacks Must Stop? Don Lennon is getting confused here, and he obviously hasn't prepared for this interview.
About if someone started a movement that said cancer matters, and then someone comes in and said, why aren't you talking about HIV? It's not the same thing. We're talking about cancer. So the Black Lives Matter movement.
So if you start a movement called Cancer Matters, and then you start coming in talking about HIV, that's like starting a group called Black Lives Matter, and then coming in and say these Black Lives Matter. That doesn't make sense. By Don Lemon's logic, that's like starting a group called Cancer Matters, and then someone comes in and says, okay, well, what about all these people dying of prostate cancer? And then you say, no, fuck prostate cancer. This is only about breast cancer. What? I thought you said Cancer Matters, meaning all cancer. So Don Lemon really is very dumb. I'd love to see a really strong right-wing debater take on Don Lemon, because he would get crushed. And it's no surprise you don't see him debating any of those guys, because he's not sharp enough to do it.
Is about police brutality and injustice in that manner.
So hang on. So what? Black Lives Matter is about police brutality. But hang on. It's, as I said, it's not called against police brutality of black people. It's called Black Lives Matter. So no, actually, it's not about police brutality by name. It's about Black Lives Mattering. You have to change the group to fit your cognitive dissonance, Don. You have to change the group name if you want to roll with that logic.
Not about what's happening in black neighborhoods. There are people who are working on that issue, and if you want to start that issue, why don't you start it? Do you understand what I'm saying?
This is some ridiculous straw man. All Terry Crews is saying is, if the group's called Black Lives Matter, we have to look at all black lives and not certain black lives, because all lives are equally important.
But when you look at the organization, police brutality is not the only thing they're talking about.
I know that, but I agree.
Exactly. They're not just talking about police brutality, but they're talking about all left-wing stuff. They're talking about just democratic stuff in general. We were even getting the trans rights and trans Black Lives Matter and all that. So Black Lives Matter, as I've been saying, is a Trojan horse, for democratic policies.
But that's not what the Black Lives Matter movement is about, Terry. Black Lives.
So Don Lemon is just completely wrong, and his counter is, but that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. Whatever logical stuff that Terry Crews comes out with, Don Lemon just kind of, because he feels a certain way, just says, but that's not what it's about, without offering any facts or logic whatsoever.
It's about police brutality and about criminal justice. It's not about what happens in communities when.
So even if he's right and Black Lives Matter is about police brutality, then Black Lives Matter is bullshit, because they only care about a very, very small amount of black people dying, and then the lion's share of black people who are dying, they just continue to let them die because they're not important, because they're not useful to their political narrative. Awful.
Comes to crime, black on black crime, people who live near each other, black people kill each other, same as whites. 80-some% of white people are killed by white people because of proximity.
Very true.
It's the same.
Yeah, that's true. However, let me give you this stat. Black people make up around 13% of the US population, and yet they account for over half of all the murders. So a disproportionate ratio of crime is committed by black people. Why is that happening? Why are we not talking about these issues? That should not be going on right now. But Don Lemon doesn't care, because he doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff. All he cares about is political power, and he's a puppet of the elites.
Black people. That happens in every single neighborhood. But that doesn't, again, I'm not saying that's not important that those kids died, but it's a different movement.
Trying to backpedal now. Those kids' lives are kind of important, but just let's forget about that for now. Forget about that. Even though most of the people dying are through black on black violence, forget about it. Those lives are not important. Just awful. Why can't we just all come together and say, look, we need to stop black people dying in general, all of them? Why is that so hard? And we all just work together to do what's right. Why is this so difficult?
Listen, I understand what you're saying. I totally understand. It is about police brutality. That should never be accepted. Yeah.
He's right.
Saying that that's not it, but there's more there. Okay. And when I look at, if they have more on their agenda, we need to ask them about what else is on that agenda other than police brutality. And that's all I'm doing. Questioning, warning, watching.
So this is all about the narrative of oppressor versus oppressed, white versus black, cops versus proletariats, essentially. That's all this is about, and that narrative is central to Marxism. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter is a self-admitted, trained Marxist. And the strategy of the Marxist is to tear down the system through violent revolution. And this is all about getting rid of Donald Trump by any means possible. And all of the people behind this do not give a fuck about black lives. But Terry Crews clearly does.
If that bothers you, now that bothers me. Because if I can't warn you, we are equal. If we're equal, I should be able to say something.
We're talking about black lives, and Don Lemon is He's laughing about it. He just doesn't give a fuck. This is so distasteful.
I gotta go. We'll see you, Terry. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
But look, at least they can have a laugh at each other at the end. I feel Terry Crews was so much more sincere than Don Lemonhead. So, wow, I mean, that's kind of a heavy way to start the show. That's a little bit heavy. I think I've made abundantly clear how I feel about all of that. So, yeah, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think Terry Crews was in the right? Amazingly, this is on CNN.com, and everyone on CNN is on Terry Crews' side. So Terry Crews is getting a lot of love from people on CNN, but not as much on Twitter, it seems. So in other news today, well, we're going to go over to Hong Kong. So I told you a little bit about George Orwell's 1984, a book that I'm really loving right now. My fucking hair, mate, is sticking up all over the fucking place. Trying to sort it out. So, as I said before, Don Lemon takes a statement which is obviously a fact, and then tries to kind of muddle it up and spin it round, and then turn it back on the person stating the fact, and then say, no, you're wrong. That's a classic commie socialist Marxist tactic, and that is literally exactly what China are doing right now to the United Kingdom in relation to what's going on with Hong Kong at the moment. As you probably know, Hong Kong passed a national security law, change the lights, a national security law, meaning that people in Hong Kong can basically now get arrested for protesting. And the United Kingdom, my country, has come out and said, well, this is unacceptable. And they tried to kind of stand up a little bit for Hong Kong. And now China are gaslighting the United Kingdom and saying, how dare you do this? You're in the wrong. You're encroaching on our freedoms. So this is a very left-wing kind of tactic. The left wing does something crazy. For example, trans rights or something to do with trans. So they say women can change their sex to male, which is just scientifically incorrect. And then if you say, they say something crazy like that, and when you say, well, you say the truth, well, that's not true, then they say, oh, you're attacking us, you're attacking trans people, you're an evil person. That is called gaslighting. It comes from a movie where the husband of this woman tries to make her go insane by doing stuff, and then when she questions it, he says, no, it's all in your head. So I think he keeps turning off the light on the stairs or something. And she says, why is the light going off? Are you turning it off? And he says, no, it's you. You're going crazy. And then she actually loses her mind and commits suicide or something. Gaslighting, tactic of the left and tactics of hardline socialists. And that's what Don Lemon was trying to do to Terry Crews. And that's what China are now doing to the UK. And that's what a lot of leftists try to do to people in central positions like myself. So let's go over to LBC News so I can tell you what's going on with this argument between the UK and China. So the UK gave Hong Kong back to China in 1997. I think they had it on a 99-year lease or something, and they gave it back under the one party, two systems rule. So there's supposed to be two systems, the Chinese system, which I guess is the communist system, and the free system, the Western system. But China have just basically said, fuck you, we're not going to do that. We're going to turn Hong Kong into a communist country. And so no one can speak the truth. No one can protest. If you do any of that shit, you'll get busted by the secret police, just like in George Orwell's 1984, and you'll never be seen again. This is what a lot of leftists want for America right now, including Don Lemon. That's where we're going. We're tearing down statues and shit. There's so many parallels in all parts of these shows that I'm doing today that bleed over, cross over into one another. And what really pissed me off about this is how limp England's become. I left England about 10 years ago. I went to Japan, and I don't regret it because I just felt my country had become a bunch of pussies. We'd become a financial center for the world. So there's loads of smart people, it's good university education, but it's all about money and loans and finance, and that's basically what England's become. We don't boss it anymore on the world stage. We used to be the colonial fucking bastards. We used to kick ass. Now we've just made America our policeman, our daddy. And I'm just tired of England being such a bitch with everything, with politics and Brexit, what to do, the people voted, let's have a second vote. Corona, what C word will we do? Do we do testing? I don't know. Oh, it's too late now, everyone's infected. That's kind of the English way. China doesn't give a shit. China just totally straight up gaslights the UK and says, fuck you, this is what we're doing. They do it to everyone. And the UK is, should we say anything bad against China? And I hate Britain's response. Why are you letting China just do this? Why don't you stand up to China and say, no, fuck you, you cunts, you're not going to do this. You can't renege on the agreement. You have to let the Hong Kong people be free. Where is that kind of dialogue from England? We can't be pussies because China, they've come for Hong Kong. They've taken Hong Kong. Next will be Taiwan. Next will be the world. Communists, see, communism is a running theme. Socialism, communism, Marxism, it's all evil. This runs through Black Lives Matter as well. This philosophy, right? If you support them, know what you're fucking supporting. Communism has no border. It is a utopia. It is one people. That's the dangers of all this. We're all exactly the same and we're all one faceless block. We're not the same. Parts of us are the same. We want the same things. We want to eat, we want to drink, we want to sleep, we want to fuck, but we have different cultures, right? And different personalities, especially different cultures. And so China wants to just merge everyone into one easily controllable faceless mass, much like how a lot of the Democrats just want to have blacks and whites and women and this and kind of manage like that and don't see any individuality. That's kind of not a million miles away from a Chinese philosophy, a communist philosophy. It really isn't. And China, as I said, they want this socialist utopia where we're all one and it's all perfect. And there is no limit to that. It's not limited by seas or oceans or borders. It's just expansive. And communism can pop up in any country, like it's popping up in England and popping up in America, especially with all this tearing down of statues and Black Lives Matter stuff. And China will, after Hong Kong and after Taiwan, they will come for you if they can. They would take over the West and America like that if they could. And so I hate to see people kowtowing to China here with England, and also Hollywood, Disney, leftists censoring their movies for China, America allowing China to produce most of their medicine, all this stuff. It's really, really evil. I'm rambling now, but let's have a look at this world news on LBC News, because this is, it just makes England look like a bunch of pussies. It says, China warns Britain it will bear consequences of interference with Hong Kong. Fuck, why did we give it back to them? See, white colonial rule, so bad, so evil. Yay, give Hong Kong back to China. It'll be much better. Now look at it. Now look at it. See, Western culture, we've done a lot of bad shit. We went through slavery and all that kind of stuff. But also, Western culture abolished slavery. It was the first to pioneer the abolition of slavery. And so, it's not perfect. And fuck, we had to go through some fucking awful shit that we still need to talk about. But look, man, we gave Hong Kong back to China. What other country would give Hong Kong back? No one else would do that. And look what happens when you're nicey in search of the utopia, when we're all one and we're all nice and we're just friendly to everyone. If people don't share the same values as you and people are unscrupulous like the Chinese Communist Party and communists in general, they will absolutely fuck you. And that's what China are doing here. So the article says, China has warned Britain it will bear the consequences if it interferes with Hong Kong. Where's the news that China will bear the fucking consequences if they fuck with Hong Kong? Stand up for those people. Stand up for the free system. Don't let China take over. Beijing's ambassador to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, accused Britain of interfering in China's internal affairs by offering up to 3 million Hong Kong as a route to citizenship. You see how evil communism is. Marxism, Black Lives Matter, is Marxist. Communism and Marxism says that if you offer their people a route into your country just to live there, that's interfering in internal affairs, and you have to bear the consequences for that. No one can escape. Everyone must be controlled. Marxism is so fucking raw evil. It's untrue. The article continues. It comes after the People's Republic last week imposed, following anti-government protests in Hong Kong last year, the controversial security law. The law makes secessionist, subversive, or terrorist activities illegal, as well as foreign intervention in the city's internal affairs. If you're wondering what secessionist means, it's a person who favors formal withdrawal from a membership of a federation or body. This is really cultish. Just like Black Lives Matter, once you're in, you can never leave. And silence is violence. If you don't say anything, you're complicit. You have to echo our talking points and follow the beliefs and commands of the state to a T, or you will be cast out and bear the consequences. Any person, the article continues, taking part in activities such as shouting slogans or holding up banners and flags calling for the city's independence is violating the law regardless of whether violence is used. And this makes the whole BLM stuff look ridiculous. A lot of the BLM's criticisms are on Donald Trump's a fascist and he's a white supremacist. Well, in Hong Kong, if you hold up a banner, you can get life in jail. That's real fascism. But in America, you can hold up a banner anywhere, even when there's coronavirus, C word, and as long as it's in line with the mainstream media's narrative, which is the oppressor versus oppressed thing, even during a pandemic, that's okay. So you can infect people and get other people killed and hold up signs, and you will never be told to stop in the West, and yet they are calling it fascist. This just shows you how much bullshit is circulating with the BLM at the moment. It's really annoying because you feel that Black Lives Matter started off in a good place. Its locus, its starting point that branched out, its locus was the police brutality. But now it's been infected with all this Marxist shit, and it's making black people look bad to a lot of people who are sitting on the fence, which is just wrong, because black people in general have done nothing wrong, but their movement's been infected, and it's just a bad look in general. It's a bad look, in my opinion. What should have been a good thing, what started out as a good thing, is now, like all these organizations and cultist things, is descending into a game of power and money, and it sucks. Anyways, back to this article. Critics see the move as Beijing's boldest step yet to erase the legal firewall between the former British colony and the mainland's authoritarian Communist Party system. In an online press conference, Liu Xiaoming said, "Our first response is we criticize the British move. We don't think they've honored their commitment." What the fuck? We were supposed to have one party, two rule system. We've honored it massively. We gave it back. China would never have given it back to us. Imagine if Britain had done what China had done. We're not giving it back. And if you go against that, you'll bear the consequences. That's what we should have fucking done, so these people can have their freedom. And then China turn around and gaslight and say, well, England didn't honor their commitment, when that's exactly what they've done. It's exactly like Don Lemon trying to gaslight Terry Crews. The article continues. Secondly, we think it's an interference into China's internal affairs. I think this is a political manipulation against this national security law. Right, so it's supposed to be a two systems. That's part of the deal. Then China just say, fuck that, it's going to be our system. And then when England says, "What? Hang on a minute, you're breaking the deal," China says, this is an interference. You see how evil and insidious communism is, and socialism is, and Marxism is. It's just like there's parallels with the Black Lives Matter movement. So if I don't even say anything at all about Black Lives Matter, if I don't join the group, then that basically means that I'm against them and I'm interfering and I have to be stopped. Marxism, socialism, communism, no, it's all bad. So this is really, really freaky what they say here. This sounds like a B-movie supervillain. China said, well, the Chinese diplomat accused some British politicians of regarding China as a threat or a hostile country. I wonder why. You've just taken over Hong Kong by force and you're giving life in jail sentences to people who hold up signs. This is the worst example of gaslighting. It kind of reminds me a bit of some riots where people break stuff and smash businesses and then say, and then people criticize it and say, why are you causing violence? Why are you smashing businesses? And then the people who cause the violence and smash businesses says, you're being hostile, you're being aggressive to me. Man, it is absolutely maddening. It's maddening, I tell you. So the Chinese diplomat says, we want to be your friends. We want to be your partner. But if you want to make China a hostile country, you have to bear the consequences. So this is like someone coming up and stealing your wallet. And then you say, hey, you've stolen my wallet. And they say, we want to be your friends. We want to be your partner. But if you're going to be aggressive, you have to bear the consequences. This is communism. This is Marxism. And this is what Black Lives Matter has become. Look at the parallels. You don't want to go this way. You don't want to go this way. So that really pissed me off. Britain really need to stand up for themselves. Britain said, well, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Britain, said that China had committed a clear and serious breach of the Sino-British Joint Declaration that aimed to smooth the transition when the territory was handed back to China in 1997. Serious breach. Compare that to China's rhetoric of you're going to bear the consequences. We need someone with balls. Britain needs to stand up for itself. And I don't actually know why China was allowed to do this, because not just England, America has an interest in Hong Kong remaining free and autonomous. It's for that reason that America has a base on Guam in the Pacific, in Asia. It's for that reason that America has bases in Japan and does military operations in South Korea, because it needs to have a military presence out there. And you think America would never let Hong Kong go back to China, the Chinese Communist Party. So I wonder why it's been allowed to happen. I haven't really heard anyone talking about that, how China has just been allowed to bully Hong Kong back into its control. What can anyone tell me in the comments why this has been allowed to happen? There must be more of a reason than just England's a bit of a pussy. There has to be a fucking strong reason here, because that strategically is really, really important to America and England in a military sense and a cultural sense. So that's going on. I seem to be talking about the same shit every show, BLM and Hong Kong, and I just get really upset about it. I feel really upset about the fact that we can't all come together as reasonable people and just, we can acknowledge that slavery happened, and definitely there's knock-on effects of slavery that set black people back generations, that perhaps allowed white people to consolidate their wealth to a point where maybe black people can't get back in the game. But then at the same time, that we've reached a point where black people, women, everyone has equal rights in the West, especially in America. There's no better country to live in. People can basically do whatever the fuck they want. They can say whatever the fuck they want. They can do whatever they want. They can vote for whoever they want. They can take any job. And yet we can't kind of meet in the middle somewhere and try to work something out without descending into riots and accusing people of racism and canceling people and being aggressive to push forth your political beliefs in a totalitarian fascistic way. What is going on? I blame the media. I blame the media for validating all of this behavior. The left-wing media validate all this shit. That's my opinion. So in other news, Prince Harry is pussy whipped. So Prince Harry, as you know, I don't know, his bird's Meghan or Megan. She's a social justice warrior, and she's come in and she's basically whisked Harry out of the royal family. And now Harry's talking shit on the royal family. I love this, because Harry used to be a lad. He used to be one of the boys, right? He used to go out. He wore a Nazi fucking uniform for Halloween. I'm half German. Oh, I'm so offended. You're wearing a Nazi thing. It's a joke, you cunts. Harry was a bit of a lad. Harry called one of his fellow soldiers the P word for a Pakistani. And so, well, fucking hell, mate. I mean, as a royal and an ambassador, to say that, you're definitely not a spokesperson for racism. But now he's coming out and he's lecturing other people on racism. A guy who is the embodiment of colonialism and the slave trade. His family basically started colonialism and the slave trade. That guy is coming out and lecturing people on interracial relations. You can't make this stuff up. So his bird has pussy whipped him so fucking hard. She's ultimate woke, and he's standing there. Let's just analyze this hostage situation where Prince Harry's bird has forced him to come out and just emasculate himself and be a social justice cuck, while they talk to a bunch of black people in a Zoom meeting who don't get to say anything while the white man talks. You just cannot make this shit up. I absolutely love this. Come on over to my screen, you beautiful people. Let's see what fucking Harry says. So I go to The Sun. The Sun is my new source for the Johnny Massacre show, because it's just so much fun. So here we go. The article says, right the wrongs. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle say we must acknowledge uncomfortable past of the Commonwealth. So here we go, talking shit on his family. So this bird's come out and is dragging his... Look, I mean, whatever your criticisms of the royal family, she is making him come out and cuss his own family. Look at his face that says it all. He's thinking, man, I wish this bitch would just shut the fuck up, and I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm trying to... No, you should be here. You should be here. But he's kidding. I'm kidding myself. I deep down inside, I know that this woman's just got me by the balls, and I just want to get out of here, but I'll just go along with it because her pussy is so damn good, and she's so fucking hot. Take it away.
It's such a good point, Mike, that you say, because I think a lot of it as well is in that self-reflection, it's acknowledging whatever mistakes we've all made, right? So if we look at the Commonwealth, and I know part of the conversation we're going to explore later on is looking at the history of that. But
so who the fuck is this? But she is a nobody. She's just a hot bitch. She's fucking hot. She's so hot. She's so fucking hot. And why do you know she's hot? Because she's getting loads of media coverage. Why is she getting loads of media coverage? The same reason that Colin Kaepernick's got loads of media coverage, because she's all about intersectional politics. And this is lucrative. Now her career profile has been boosted hugely. You think she's doing this just because she's a nice person? I don't think so. So she's coming out and she's lecturing, apparently she's half black, but Harry is all white. And so Harry, her mouthpiece, her sock puppet, is lecturing this room full of black people on how to live their lives. This shit is just amazing. And who the fuck is this bird? She's this bird that's kind of captured a key component of the royal family, is wheeled him out as a hostage, and is now making him just disown his past and speak against his family history. Who is this woman? Who the fuck? She's just some fit bird that just sucking Harry's cock. That's literally all she's done to get here. Amazing shit. The irony is she had to suck a man's cock. She needed the man, his validation, in order to come into this world of notoriety. How's that for irony? She continues.
On that macro level, you also have to look on a more micro level.
Oh, a macro and a micro. Some big words there for you to make me sound intelligent, because intelligence and beauty can go together.
With each of us individually, what have we done in our past that we put our hand up? And I think this is a moment of reckoning where so many people go, you know what, I need to own that. Maybe I didn't do the right thing there.
Stop self-flagellating. Can we all just move on? Can we all just move on and enjoy this beautiful free civilization we have, where we can protest and say whatever we want without being chucked into jail like in Hong Kong?
What I knew, however, now it's time to reset in a different way. And I think,
imagine if she'd never ever sucked Harry's cock. No one would know who this girl is. No one. If you go on her Wikipedia, she's been in, I can't even remember what the fuck she's been in. 1 or 2 things, but she's so hot, sucking Harry's cock. Everyone knows who she is. And now she's all woke. She'll get a platform on every single media station and outlet known to man. This shit is lucrative. Do not think for 1 second this person really, really cares about what she's talking about. The main motivation is the notoriety, the fame, and the power. And I love how all these black people are just sitting there being lectured by her. I mean, you cannot make this shit up. No, they don't need you as a savior. These people are capable of doing it on their own.
both of us, it's part of the conversation we've had quite a bit in our calls over the last few weeks surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement, for everyone to be a part of this conversation.
And when it comes to sort of institutional and systemic racism, it's there and it stays there because someone somewhere is benefiting from it.
Mainly you, mate. Okay, so people talk about colonialism and slavery in the past, and it happened a long time ago, and who's accountable? If one person is accountable, it's you, mate. It is you. Your family wrote the book on this shit. Literally, that palace, all of that came from the colonial past. So this person is the last person that should be talking about racism and how it affects people. He's literally the last person.
We can't deny or ignore the fact that all of us have been brought up and educated to see the world differently.
Not sure about that.
However, once you start to realize...
See, he's trying to remember the script. He needs to stay in Meghan's good books. You can tell he's kind of stuttering over his words. He's got his thing that he's pre-written beforehand. He doesn't really believe in this shit. He's so pussy-whipped. He's just doing it because he's pussy-whipped.
There is that bias there.
Look at her. She's looking right into his eyes. She's got a knife to his cock. It's just underneath the camera. She's threatening to cut it off if he says the wrong word. She's got him hostage.
Then you need to acknowledge it. You need to acknowledge it, but then you need to do the work to be able to become more aware so that you can... Exactly what you're saying.
Well, and I think so much of what we're seeing as well is that, it's not even in the big...
See, Harry just didn't make any sense there. He just says a little bit to make sure his crazy bird thinks that he's going along with the ride, he can still get a shag. And then she gives it straight back to him. While he was talking, she even butted in on the conversation. She is wearing the royal trousers. She's got the royal trousers hoisted right up. Harry is completely whipped right now. Look at the body language. She is standing in front of him, right? Don't take that lightly. She's literally standing in front of a fucking prince. He should be strong-arming her. He should be doing the Joe Pesci, mate. Come on, darling. Your whole career came from here. Get down on your knees. Just joking. But the body language, right? It's unmistakable. She's standing in front of him. Not only that, she's standing bang in the middle, and he's off to the side. Half of his body's out of the fucking camera. She has completely whipped him. This is what toxism, woke, social justice shit does. It just destroys everything.
Moments, right? It's in the quiet moments where racism and unconscious bias lies, and as you've said...
So this is complete bullshit. This is just trying to... This is totalitarianism. This is fascism. This is trying to just completely assimilate everyone with your political beliefs through social pressure, political pressure, and ultimately by force, which is a lot of this Black Lives Matter stuff. And it comes to the point where even if you say nothing, it means you're complicit. So hang on a minute. Today, did you say that rape was bad? You didn't say that? That means you're complicit and you support rape. It's that same logic. It's very, very... It's an oversimplification. And it is just bullshit. Just because you don't say something doesn't mean you don't support it. And don't try to force me into echoing your political talking points, because that is the textbook definition of the F word, fascism.
Lies and hides and thrives. And it's those nuances that I think makes it confusing for a lot of people to understand the role that they play in that, either passively or actively. But
Right, well, I mean, the role passively or actively, all of these black people are completely passive. Look, they're all just sitting there being lectured by this white couple. She's mixed race, but yeah, I mean, they're essentially one entity, right? And fucking hell. Isn't it funny? The black people sitting there while they're lectured by these dudes. Oh, the irony. Oh, the irony. Why aren't the black people speaking at all? This is just unbelievable.
Even more so passively. And so much of what I've come to the understanding of, especially in learning even more about it of late, and obviously having had personal experience with it as well, but in people's complacency, they're complicit.
Yeah.
No, I am not complicit in any of this shit at all. You are just doing this for your own gain, your own power, your own notoriety, and your spotlight. And I'm not going to support that. And me not supporting your dishonest, thin veneer of morality doesn't make me a bad person. So you can fuck off with all that, Meghan.
And that, I think, is the shift that we're seeing, to go, it's not enough to just be a bystander and saying, well, it wasn't me. And that's what I think was very much manifested.
No. She's trying to bully you into echoing her political talking points. Do not go along with what this ideologue is saying.
And what you're feeling from people's outpouring surrounding.
Hey, I think what you're saying is bullshit. If you don't agree with me, if you're silent on that, then you're evil, you're a cunt, and you must be cancelled. That's what she's saying.
The murder of George Floyd, that it wasn't that this wasn't always happening. It's that it's come to a head at a time where people just said, enough. And I'm curious to know from all of you how you're seeing the effects of Black Lives Matter obviously, Mike, you're in Manchester, you said, but around the world where the rest of you are.
I'm seeing some great effects, like, white and black relations being at their lowest ever for no reason at all. Statues of even people that abolished slavery being torn down. I'm seeing some wonderful effects of the Black Lives Matter movement.
How you're seeing that play out and percolate there.
Right, so Harry is completely pussy whipped. Just wanted to show you that. It's quite funny because I'm British and Harry's British, so that's a thing. And where is this going to go? The royal family aren't going to take kindly to this. Princess Diana, she died a little while back. Some people say it was a conspiracy. Her car didn't really crash. The Queen orchestrated it because she wasn't towing the line in the royal narrative. The royals are fucking powerful. I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into an Epstein case if this keeps going on. But fucking hell, social justice, wokeness, it's so damn tiresome. All these people, they're just not cool. They're just not cool. They're so uptight. They're so false. People connect with something they can relate to. And they relate to truth. And there is no truth in this. Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. You sucked his cock. You got really fucking famous. You'd be a nothing if it wasn't for him. And now, not only that, have you got your notoriety from him, you're turning him into your little bitch. And you're loving the power move. You kind of wheel him out there as your sock puppet. And you're like, yeah, look, I've got this royal member under my thumb. Look at my power. Fuck off, mate. Fuck off. So, what else is going on right now? Well, I think we've talked enough about politics today. I'm going to save a bit of ammo for the next Johnny Massacre show. But a few other things I just wanted to discuss is a conversation with my cousin, who I call Wazn. We've got a video where we talk about Star Wars. You can look there if you want to know my Wazn, who I love very much. We had a political conversation today. And man, it was the best political conversation I've had in a long time. He said he really wanted to come in on the show. And my cousin's black and I'm white and we grew up together and we were like, he was my first mate, my first best mate. And wow, it was mad. We talked about Black Lives Matter and we talked about Marxism and shit like this. And it was interesting to speak to someone who represents, so to speak, the black community. And he speaks to a lot of other black people and how they feel about it. And it was really, really interesting for me. We had a lot of common ground and it gave me a lot of hope for the future. And if you buy into the news too much, I think it's going to make white people treat black people as soft and delicate. Oh, what do I say to the black person? Maybe they're going to hate me. Maybe I'm going to hurt their feelings. I would say don't feel like that. I think look, as long as the person you're speaking to is a reasonable person, you can talk about all this shit in an open way. And at the end of the day, this is what Black Lives Matter was supposed to do. It's supposed to raise awareness of the issue, and so people like me and you, we're all going to talk about it. But it's been hijacked by this Marxist tear down the city shit, which is dragging it through the mud. So if you're watching Wazen, I really appreciate that conversation. You kind of blew my mind. You're much more politically switched on than I gave you credit for. In other news, I'm really late to the party, but I've discovered Little Richard. So Little Richard is one of the guys who invented rock and roll. Some people say he did invent it. My mate told me it was all about James Brown, but I mean, fuck, man. Have you ever heard a voice like this? Let's listen to a little bit of Little Richard. This is my new favorite artist. Just wow, man. The fucking rock and roll, baby. This is the prototype rock and roll. Listen to this. Listen to this.
Here's that real solid man of rock and roll, Little Richard and Monto Sally.
Gonna tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John. He came, he has the misery, but he having a lot of fun, oh baby. Yeah, baby.
Listen to this. Look at this shit. This music is incredible. I'm going to go down the rock and roll rabbit hole from here on in. All the whiteys dancing. Wow, the energy of this music is something else. Woo! Dude, his voice is... have you heard a voice that good? Ever? See, this is kind of interesting because I'm pretty sure at this time, black people couldn't even use the bathroom of the venue. So you want to talk about systemic racism and stuff. This is when these issues really applied. But this guy didn't give a fuck. Look, he didn't, even against all those odds, he didn't let that fucking get him down. Look at him. He is the king of the fucking room. He is the man. And culturally, when it's all said and done, he died 2 months ago. Can you believe that? I can't believe there wasn't more news about it. When it's all said and done, this is the winner. This black guy is the winner. Culturally, I mean, fuck. What more could you want for a legacy than what this guy has? Absolute fucking legend. Apparently this guy gave the Beatles their break. Listen to that voice. Oh man, it's like the whitest dancing ever. Look at this guy, he's fucking smashing it. I'm on that vibe though, that shoulder vibe, that shaky shoulder vibe. This guy is the fucking man.
Hey, you want another, you get it. And you're going to meet the winners of the Harvest Moon Contest, Jimmy and Joveda.
So, yeah, Little Richard, that's a thing. That is a thing. That guy is the fucking absolute man. I can't think of a better voice than that. So, fuck, man, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. I love it because it reminds me of Back to the Future a little bit. Because that movie has a rock and roll theme in it, and Chuck Berry, and yeah, so Little Richard, Chuck Berry, James Brown, those are the dudes you mention when you talk about rock and roll and shit like that, and soul in the case of James Brown. And yeah, it just reminds me of the music in Back to the Future because it's that kind of theme, has a rock and roll theme in the 50s. Little Richard, fucking love him. Make sure you check out some Little Richard if somehow you've avoided that until now. Finally for today. Some people tell me they want to know more about Japan. I never really talk about it because when I do, no one really seems to give a fuck. But I'll tell you something about Japan. So my mate told me about something in Japan that cracked me up. So I found this girl on Tinder. Look at this. So this is Naru-san. And this is so fucking Japanese. Look, you've got it's just overly done fashion with too many details, but it all culminates in something that actually somehow works. It's all really perfect. You've got the perfect hair going on, got the kind of bow-legged shit going on. And it's a little bit weird for me. I love the Japanese stuff, but I like a little bit more Western sensibility and sexiness. But I asked my Japanese mate, I said, do you like this? And he said, yeah. Japanese men love this shit. That's why you see it so much. And he told me, he goes, I love the space between the skirt and the stockings. And he told me, that means zettai ryokan. Zettai ryokan. Zettai means exact. So, zettai desu ne. Kore zettai ii desho. So, if you say ii desu, it means good. It's something that's good. Zettai ii desu means it's definitely good. It's perfectly good. It's exactly good. And so, ryokan means in, where you can stay, or means space. So, zettai ryokan means sacred space or perfect space, which is the thigh section of the female leg between the stocking and the mini skirt. So that is a thing. Whenever you see that at a cosplay in the West, if that's where you're watching, you can say, hello, darling, loving the zettai ryokan. Or you can be more Japanese and say, anata no zettai ryokan mecha kirei desho. Either or, that will work. And I think that's about it for today's Johnny Massacre show. And I tell you what, mate, you better be back for the next one. Otherwise, I'll be coming round your house. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, because that is what all those other cunts tell you to do. Laters.